$200 in Canada. Got this extendable double bed just for $150. This beautiful painting for $30. And this chic night lamp just for $20. All of this through the Carrot app. Carrot is a community-driven app where you can buy and sell used products with convenience and reliability. Just head over to your Carrot app, select your neighborhood, and start searching for what you need. Use the chat option to connect with the seller, negotiate the price, and seal the deal with complete trust and no hidden fees. Decorating your space doesn't have to break the bank. Download the free Carrot app and try it today.
From the reporters was where the most people were present. That, of course, was not too far from the wrecked and destroyed wedding equipment. Most of the reporters were hiding behind the wreckage as they continued to film the scene in front of them, that of the strange Dalkey against the Allies. Not much had happened for a while now, as it looked like the groups were discussing something, but thanks to everyone having enhanced microphones, they were able to pick up on the conversation between the two sides. However, there was one that noticed something going on behind the dragon that had been summoned. Everyone will be filming this fight, and the others are too scared to go ahead. But that's where that strange shadow user went, and it looks like something else is going on. Quickly, moving from one pile of debris to the next, AJ was making his way over so he could get in a better position. He was planning to make another scoop by filming what the others were too afraid of. Of course, he had to be careful not to catch the attention of the chained. Going around the whole area, AJ finally found some of the ground, which had been uprooted, making it look like a large rock. It had been from the shipwreck that had happened the other day. It looked looked like they didn't quite bother to repair any of the grounds that weren't going to be used for the wedding. Looks like I've hit a jackpot. That's the Chain's A-team that's fighting against the intruders. When checking how many viewers AJ had at the moment, the number had gone significantly down due to him being on the move. The ones who had stayed were the hardcore fans of his that believed that he would show him something phenomenal. Since it was nearly impossible to watch multiple streams at once, the others had left to other channels who were covering the main event, leaving him with only a few thousand. Although I might not have a lot of viewers now, once this is all over, they will all start flocking to the other things that happened during this event. While taking a peek, AJ noticed that there were 2 people missing from the main event. Where is the Chain leader, and where is the intruder? There were goosebumps on his body, wondering what was currently happening. At the moment, there were 3 major events occurring, yet it appeared as if the world would have to miss out on seeing one of them. So, what are we going to do? Ray asked, making sure to use a mental connection to address only those who had been fighting on his side. He had long since noticed the reporters and could guess that their strange machines were aimed at them to listen in. I am happy to wait here so you guys don't get involved with what is happening behind me. They need practice after all, and if they don't survive, that's just how things were meant to be. The cycle of life, Ray rambled on. I'm afraid the situation has changed a little, Viswell said, walking forward. Now that we know that there is a powerful Dalki still alive, this has become a worldwide matter. It would be best if we could get rid of the problem here and now, but if the Blades insist on supporting him, I guess there is something in history that we don't know about. Hearing this, Jake looked towards his mother. His Uncle Shiro clearly said something to her that had stunned her. He had never seen her this shocked. Whatever was to happen, though, he would follow her. Suddenly, one person decided to act. The current leader of the Bree family that had also attended the wedding had charged out from where the Chained were. She was riding on the back of the flaming lion. As the beast opened its mouth, it shot out a large flame that was in the shape of a ring. It was heading straight for the 2 Blades. Shiro looked like he was ready to block the attack, but lifting his hand, he could see 8 lines of large yellow aura coming towards him. Seeing this, he had no choice but to hearten his body. The attack was too quick to do anything else, which meant that the flame was still going to head towards Ray. You guys really don't have to do this for me, Ray thought, and spoke to those that were seemingly on his side, because he could see one more person heading in front of him. That was Vicky herself. She lifted her hand and blasted out a ring of water to crash into the flames of fire. As the 2 closed, large amounts of steam filled the whole area, blocking the view of everyone. Uncle Shiro, a voice was heard, and throwing out his 2 whips of lighting that were in his hands, Jake had slashed all the yellow aura attacks from the dampier before it reached his uncle. If Mother has decided to help you, then I will help you as well. Thanks, the man replied as he placed his hand on Jake's shoulder, but it's not Shiro right now. Vicky, having blocked the attack, could see the steam clearing up, and she then looked towards the other blade. If you want to go help your friends out, then we will do whatever it takes to stop them. It's been a long time. Hearing these words, there was a genuine soft smile on the man's face. I kept telling you guys there is no need to help them. Ray let out a sigh, and now that the steam had finally heated up, everyone could clearly see the VIPs having split into 2 sides. Is it really going to be like this? With the greens there, now I really don't know what to do. And I can't get through to Andy. Fiswell facepalmed, shaking his head. The Bree family leader, a Vampire Corps general, Pure's Agent 1 Chris, and the Dampier Flora were all on one side, facing off against the dragon Dalki Ray, and the others were on the other side. You're right, Shiro replied. Somehow Peter has looked after him this long, so they should be okay. Since Quinn summoned you, I will protect you, whoever you are. You protect me. That is a funny statement to make. Ray couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of that statement. However, you seem to know the young boy, so what is your name? Hardening his body until it was in a complete solid state of metal, he turned around to look at the others. The name is Vorden, but let's talk more later. For now, let's subdue those pesky flies and wait for Quinn to return. Now, with how the situation had turned, even Flora, who had been aggressive in her attacks, wasn't sure if it was the best option. It wasn't just anybody that they would be going against. These people were strong. like those from the Bree family had made up their mind as well. I really don't know what to do, Fiswell uttered, as he twisted his foot in the ground. Why does it have to be my decision to make? Looking up, Fiswell could feel a breeze on his face, and all he could see was a dark fist in front of him. On impact, he immediately felt his nose getting broken and his whole body flipping, until the punch forced his body to go downward into the ground. The vampire general slammed into the ground, chucking up countless piles of rock and debris. Don't worry, I made the decision for you. I was never going to just let you guys go, not after getting the chance to fight after a long time anyway. General Fiswell was a well-known member of the Vampire Corps. His feats are world-renowned, and that was why, when he arrived at today's event, others thought that the Vampire Corps was taking the whole matter exceptionally seriously. Although he had yet to show or do something shocking today that would warrant what he was capable of, they knew he was strong. This was why it came as a big surprise to everyone when he was defeated with a single hit. The others paused for a few seconds, waiting for Fiswell to stand up from the crater he was in, but he didn't even move an inch. It was as if one of the most powerful members of the Vampire Corps was one-shotted. The dragon, is it stronger now that it's in human form? One of the reporters whispered, echoing the thoughts of the others around him. They had yet to see the dragon use that much force to take someone out. Maybe those spikes are real, another reporter gulped. If that is the case, we will need someone more powerful than the great hero Gwyn here. Unfortunately, even the great hero had only defeated an 8-spiked Dalki. I have a feeling the whole world is doomed. Usually, reporters would tend to over-exaggerate the situation to cater to more audiences. Tragic and scary news always brought in more readers and viewers, which was why, after working like so for all those years, they had gone straight to changing their broadcast names to End of the Earth. The human race is about to go extinct. Someone stronger than the hero. I make 500 credits working from home, and you can do it too. Click here now. I say goodbye to you all. The end is here. Staring at the vampire on the ground, even Ray was taken aback too by how still the latter was. He shouldn't be dead, right? I am sure I calculated everything well. I did put some of the dragon's energy, similar to how the second stage of heat works, into his body so he couldn't heal, but that's it. Either way, neither group would stand around after Ray had acted, and immediately the huge lion-like beast spat out fire from its mouth and sent several rings of fire toward Ray. Once again, Vicky dashed forward and released rings of water as a counterattack. I will take care of things here, Jake. Be a good kid and deal with the rest, Vicky shouted. Uncle, go help the others like you said, Jake shouted. That dragon human is strong enough as it is. While saying that, they saw that Ray was already on the move, and he was heading straight towards a particular blonde-haired female. There's one that I can kill, and I should at least help the kid out, Ray thought, as the energy collected around his fist, creating sparks in the air, like a meteoroid coming through the Earth's atmosphere. Even though there were no flames, Flora could feel an immense heat on her face. She had a strong intuition that this punch was more powerful than the one used against Fiswell. However, before it could reach her, a red-skinned figure, similar in size to Ray, appeared right between the latter and her. The large man's muscular, scarred chest was going to take on the attack head-on, but oddly, the skin was bright red in color, as if the skin itself was pulsating with power. This man was none other than Chris. The interruption from Chris was too soon for Ray to pull back, so he had to go ahead with the punch. I didn't mean to kill the two of you. I just hope Gwyn won't mind too much. On impact, the fist made a loud bang, and a large wave of red energy like a meteor had hit the ground and flew behind them. It caused the debris of the wedding venue to spread even further due to the aftershock. Some of the unlucky guests in the chain that were too close flew up in the air, while others received a few burn marks on their bodies. And in the other direction, the ground was utterly uprooted, creating a large canyon-like landscape. Though the surprising thing wasn't the power of the punch itself, rather it was the person who took this punch. The reporters were receiving the images from the situation after switching to their own personal cameras. Due to most of their drones being destroyed, they noticed something. Ray could see a nice piece of open land. The chain owned many lands and had only built upon a small section of it. "Here will do," Ray said, and soon whacked Chris's arms away and punched him into the ground. Following quickly, he landed not too far from where Chris had fallen, and a few seconds later, pushing the ground and the rocks away, Chris jumped out of the crater. "It looked like you didn't want to show everything you have in front of those cameras, so I thought I would bring you here. I can tell you're old, very old. Which begs the question, how did you survive so long as a human? I can think of one answer, and that is, you stole others' life forces," Ray said. Chris was impressed with this person. "You are clearly not a Dalkey. Otherwise, everything I know about the Dalkey would be wrong. This whole thing is interesting for Pure. Were you the one that killed him? Killed the one on Mars?" It took Ray a second to figure out what he was talking about, since Ray hadn't followed the events of Quinn closely, but he remembered that there was someone from the Pure that Quinn had fought on Mars. "I guess out here we can both go all out," Chris shouted, as he summoned even more energy from within, and Ray could sense it now. Before, the key energy had covered it up, but a different type of energy was deep inside of him. This man was incredibly strong, but so was the energy inside him, making him an absolute monster. A monster that had the strength to take on the Celestials. A monster like him. You're a werewolf."
Dear listener, the upcoming episode will be today's last free episode of this story. Come back tomorrow to enjoy free episodes, or get coins now to continue listening.
He was fast. Lucia tried to reach out and stop her, but she couldn't even react in time. The sound of fighting behind them didn't disturb the others too much because they had their own worries to deal with. Lucia, for a brief second, felt relief. After Locke had been hit in the leg by Minnie, she could feel the pressure release on her. She took this moment to grab her spear and prop it into the ground as she lifted herself up. She then rolled over to where Minnie was. "Thank you. I'm the one meant to be protecting you, but it looks like you're the one protecting me," Lucia stated. Still, while the two were in the middle of conversing, Clicker managed to control the battlefield once more. Locke had been transported directly behind the two girls when clicking his fingers and had both of his hands ready. With his powers, both of them would be out for the count. As he went to press them down, he suddenly felt immense pressure from behind and on his arms. It was felt on his wrist, and a cracking sound was heard. "You think you guys can keep playing games?" Peter shouted. "I might not be able to catch that girl or get a hold of that clicking bastard, but I can take care of this one." Currently, Peter didn't look like his current self, at least not what he would usually look like. He had unlocked his celestial form in frustration. The red glow in his veins showed, and his head's long tail-like structure appeared. "All I had to do was guess what you wanted to do, and I think I made a good guess." Locke was in pain, in agony, but he knew there perhaps was only one way out of his current situation. With Peter touching him, he could use his ability to the max, using as much gravitational force as possible. "I don't need my hands. He needs to be in a certain area. I'm going to skin this guy alive," Locke thought, as he smiled, but quickly realized that something was wrong. For one, Peter hadn't let go of Locke's hands, which also meant he wasn't lying on the ground like all his opponents before. "Is my ability not working? Did Cube use his powers on me by accident?" "You are confused," Peter said. The next second, using his head while still holding on tightly to Locke's hands, Peter swung his tail. It was slower than it usually would be. After all, Peter was affected by the gravity, but it was still as fast as ever. Clicker clicked his fingers, hoping to get his ally out of there, but it looked like he was a little too late. "Ah!" A loud scream was heard, coming from across the field. Minnie and Lucia looked over and could see Locke no longer had any arms. They had been cleanly sliced off. "Damn it, I was trying to go for his head, but me holding onto his arms seemed to make that part of him transform slower." And that's why Peter was at least able to cut off Locke's hands only. so many users from the chain. They probably just used one of them to heal this guy somehow. We have to get rid of Clicker, but there's the other two as well as Locke around him. As for the other two Lucia was referring to, it was Cube with rings on his hand and a shorter gentleman who had yet to act. Judging by the information they had, this was most likely the chained member Kin, who was able to counter attacks and abilities. Not too far from them, but have distanced themselves a little away from where the others were, there was Mitchell and the female Fizzle. Although unable to hit her, Mitchell had cleverly been cutting off her path of where she was able to move. Mitchell had thrown out a few black metal pins that he had on him onto the ground and attached his string to them. In doing so, he had cornered the female somewhat. Using his blood powers and the strings to slow her, bit by bit, he was pushing her away from the rest of the group. "I see," the female finally spoke. "You think if you get me far enough away from Clicker, that he won't be able to help me get away? But you haven't been able to hit me once with your attacks. There's a reason the Nutcracker doesn't care so much about me, and you know he can teleport me to him whenever he wants." Mitchell found it weird. Not once had this woman gone on the attack, and it was as if she was the one being more concerned with being near Clicker. Something was seriously up. Why would she hold out her hands in a strange way whenever she stopped? What exactly was she doing? Out in seemingly in the middle of nowhere, away from anything, were two people. Quinn didn't have a clue where they were because he was unable to hear a sound from any of the others. However, he was more surprised at something else, and that was the fact that Quinn had met someone who had blood control on the same level as him for the first time. How can he create 1,000 blood swords? This was something that I copied from Bryce, Quinn thought. Quinn was sure of it. The person in front of him didn't have any celestial energy, nor did he smell like a vampire. Either way, Quinn had no time to hesitate as he used his blood control to confidently throw out all the blood swords. At the same time, Russ imitated Quinn moving his hands, and this 1,000 blood swords moved forward as well. All of them were moving at a devastating speed and crashing into each other. A mist of red and raw energy was felt all over where they were. Looking at the red sky, as all of the weapons were destroyed, Quinn was in disbelief. The power he was using was one of the vampire's most treasured gifts. Not even the blades were able to copy blood aura. I have to think of this rationally. I can't just be shocked and surprised. It has to be an ability of some sort. Can he just copy an ability like the blades, but not quite the same? If that's the case, then I just need to use something he hasn't seen before. Running across the field, Quinn started to gather a large blood aura around his fist. As it gathered, it started to swirl around, and while doing so, the blood spun like a drill. Another one of Quinn's strongest attacks, borrowed from Richard Eno, able to destroy anything. Unlike before, even if he could copy it, since Quinn had only started to form it when getting close to Russ, he believed that Russ would be unable to copy it. He was right. Because Russ started to do something else, a strange black substance appeared from the ground. It gathered around his hands and became even more saturated. It suddenly expanded in size, growing to the same size as the blood drill. As the blood drill hit, it was stopped in its tracks, not being able to move forward. This is making no sense. This is my shadow. The shadow powers, but how can it stop blood-infused key drill? Is he using key as well? And why can he use the shadow powers? While his blood drill was doing nothing as it hit the shadow, behind Quinn, there were now thousands of blood blades all pointed towards him. Today you will learn that neither Hilston Blade nor Quinn Talon were the strongest in the world, but I. This is frustrating, Peter frowned as he stomped on the ground so hard that a large piece was lifted up and went straight towards Clicker and the other two around him. Of course, Peter never expected something like this to happen. He was just letting out his frustration. These guys aren't even strong. They're just running around and wasting our time, Peter said in frustration, this while looking at the two girls. He knew Quinn had asked him to protect them, but they were slower than him. If he attempted to go out and try to find some way to take out Clicker, it would put the girls at risk. Do it, Uncle, Minnie shouted. I'm not as weak. I can protect Lucy, and she can protect me. We can both deal with these guys, so you You should go ahead and beat up that clicker and ask him where Jessica is. Although the words coming from Minnie were full of confidence, Peter didn't know what to do. But it was quite clear that if they didn't get rid of Clicker or got control of him somehow, maybe they wouldn't see Quinn for a while. I will keep an eye on both of you, and I will keep chasing the Clicker no matter what. I'll run faster than his damn teleportation skills or whatever. But you two should call me if you need me. After saying these words, Peter flicked his long head tail and planted it in the ground. It managed to carry his entire body weight as it stomped down like a spring. The next second, it unleashed with energy, sending him like a spring up in the air. He looked like a rocket flying to break through the atmosphere. The only thing was that it wasn't heading for space. So, Minnie, I don't know if I should ask you this, but do you have any plans to get to the other two? Lucia asked. She had gripped her spear tightly. Although she couldn't use her lighting powers, she was still quite skilled in using ki, and perhaps she could do something with this. We just have to get close. Use attacks from far away or something, while Uncle Peter is distracting them, Minnie said. Wondering what she meant, Lucia saw Peter coming down like a meteor strike. He had reached the maximum height of the projectile and was now coming down at an accelerating speed. He slammed, coming down at an accelerating speed. He slammed directly where the enemy group was standing, and the aftershock of his landing created a big crater, sending the rocks and land flying. Not just that, the rocks seemed to be fused with red energy. A debris wall of red vampire aura had erupted along with the rocks, and not too far from Peter was Clicker, who looked to be breathing heavily with the other two by his side. That was close. He's so fast. Just as Clicker said these words and regained his composure, he saw Peter was already heading towards him. Cube, Kin, Locke, you're on your own. Deal with them, Clicker ordered and clicked his fingers. Unfortunately, there were quite a few limitations to Clicker's power. As for one of them, it was the fact that he could only move two objects or people at a time using his powers. This was because he had two hands, and each click was one teleportation. However, he had mastered a way to click as fast as possible over the years to match his powers. This was why, in a challenging situation like this one, with his life on the line, Clicker needed to think of something else. Clicking his fingers, two more people appeared in front of Clicker. They were other members of the chain, but were left quite confused. However, upon seeing a certain person come toward them, though, they readied themselves to fight it out. But Peter didn't waste any time on them, and ran right through the gap. And when he did so, they hadn't even realized that he had already used his tailhead to slice through their bodies, killing them on the spot. I don't hesitate to kill those trying to kill me, Peter shouted. Clicker had moved, but Peter would continue to hunt him down, no matter what. The two girls were now staring at the three chained members they needed to take out. It was going to be tough. Still, they ran forward, heading towards their opponents. You think without Clicker we're useless? You two are just a bunch of novices, Locke stated. Minnie aimed one of her fingers towards Cube. Lucy had told her that it was most likely him blocking the abilities. If that was the case, then getting rid of him would eliminate a big disadvantage. She shot out a red blood bullet, which went right for his head. But before it could reach, though, Kin appeared in front of it, and by throwing out his hand, he created a wall made of strange lights. It was at that moment, as the red blood bullet hit the wall, the latter froze in place for a moment, and then got reflected where it came from. No, he can counter red blood aura as well. What a strong ability, Lucia thought. The blood bullet was coming back just as fast, and while thrusting her spear forward with her ki to defend against it, Lucia was afraid that the small vampire's attack might actually be stronger than hers. Don't worry, remember I'm here to help you out as well. Just then they heard a young woman's voice. She placed her hand on the spear and enveloped it with her red aura. The spear glowed red, and as if in sync, they moved their hand forward towards the blood bullet. Their defense pierced through the blood bullet and shook the spear slightly, but they were okay. You added your blood aura. How is that possible? Ki and blood aura are often seen as opposites that can mix, Anna answered. But there was someone who did it quite often, the hero Quinn. Although I can't produce ki myself, together we can create quite strong attacks in doing this. Where were you all this time? Just as the former was about to answer, though, they listened to a sound coming from not too far from where they were. When looking to their left, they saw it was Minnie, and she had her head down and was making small grunts. "Minnie, what's wrong? Is everything okay?" Lucia asked. The other three still weren't so keen to come forward and try to attack them, which was good for them. But now, with Minnie acting like this, it made Lucia quite concerned. After a few more seconds, Minnie finally lifted up her head, and Lucia was taken aback by the former's appearance, because all she saw were glowing red eyes, but not like that of a typical vampire when activating their powers. Instead, Minnie's eyes were glowing to the point where the white couldn't be seen in them anymore. Somehow, Minnie had summoned the little celestial energy she had during her fit of anger. Although Quinn hadn't given her a large amount, it didn't matter. Just 1 point could change a vampire completely when using the energy. The red veins appeared running up Minnie's neck. In fact, it looked like they were branching up towards her mouth and head. The glow started to settle down a little, and as this happened, the red power inside her also seemed to settle, although it was still concentrated around her neck and had created a type of ring around it. With this new energy inside of her, and still being overwhelmed by anger, Minnie started to run forward. She was fast. Lucia tried to reach out and stop her, but she couldn't even react in time. Seeing a small girl run toward them, the three chained members felt like they had nothing to fear, and Kin was ready to counter whatever attack was coming their way. When Minnie finally got close, she leapt up in the air and opened her mouth wide. "Ah!" Minnie screamed, and with it, several rings of red aura came out like waves. Calm and collected as before, Kin swiped his hand to reflect the incoming attack, but when the first red ring of power hit, his ability couldn't reflect the attack. The rings didn't touch him, though. They kind of surrounded him like a tunnel. While inside the tunnel of red rings, Kin could feel the pressure around him suddenly rise. The power of the red aura was now hurting his skin. His ears started bleeding, and suddenly, Kin's head exploded, popping like a balloon. The other two members of the Chained were left stunned. In the next moment, they brought out their weapons and gave their utmost attention to this little red vampire.
Dear listener, now play.